Bye. Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fialka. Today is August 27, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. We're live in Fialka Funny Farm Studio. It's an honor and a pleasure to meet Roman Tsivkin. Is that it?
So close.
So what is it?
Tsivkin.
Tsivkin.
That's it.
And we met mainly through the New York Finnegan's Wake group. And I'm just going to turn it over to Roman's kind of framing. How does that look, Roman?
I look gorgeous.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Live.
So nice to be here. Live.
It's pretty rare we do these live, Roman.
Woohoo!
First question is, what's the best thing for a human being?
Oh boy, you start easy, don't you? Tea and sympathy.
Tea and sympathy.
Tea and sympathy. But you know, if you want a stronger dose, I would suggest hashish and love. Someone loved to share it with. Tea and sympathy sometimes not enough.
That is good. What is your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
How it comes into me? Novels.
Yeah.
Yes, always literature.
Just to divert, did you grow up a reader because your parents told you to read? They did as an example or on your own?
Definitely as an example and on my own. My parents were Russian intelligentsia, in the 70s. My mom was a theater person. She taught theater. My dad was an engineer, but also a musician on the side. So there was a lot of books, a lot of literature around, a lot of performance. And I started reading in Russian and I never stopped.
Wow. Yeah. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Why? Because they need to survive and thrive.
Yeah, well, that's the answer I get the most is survival. But do you think this need or want is more innate or more invented?
Well, like I said, thrive is the second part of my answer. So thrive is you want to sort of live. I mean, I think everybody wants to thrive, right? Not just live, but thrive and be excited about living. So I think that's a lot of that is that. It's like you seek information on how to do that.
But is that innate in a human?
Or the seeking of the information? Yeah, I would say so. I would say it's partially innate. It could be encouraged by the environment.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's innate because we need to survive. And all of us want to consciously or subconsciously thrive, I think.
Yeah.
Just kind of following Spinoza.
Spinoza says the thrive.
Well, yeah, the conatus, your sort of your impulse to keep living and to not just live and be vegetative, though nothing against vegetables because they also have their own interesting consciousness, but you want to be thriving, you want to be using this 3-pound universe that we have here, which I think we're completely underusing and not realizing that we have this amazing supercomputer on top of our shoulders. We always seek it outside of ourselves. It's funny.
That is good. So do thoughts create emotions?
Oh, my podcast is called Feeling Bookish.
Wow.
The first word is feeling, and the second one is the book. So I would tend to say, again, it's strange how Spinoza comes into this, that the affective, the emotions are underneath, are broiling and roiling underneath all of our thoughts. You can't remove them from thinking. Yeah. I think they're primary. Thoughts can channel, direct them, do something with them, but the emotions are primary.
Wow. Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
don't know what I think until I do it.
Do it.
Until it's kind of a Zen answer, right?
Well, McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. So do it is like, yeah,
actually, it covers both.
The day,
It covers both, saying and writing.
Yeah, someone just said act.
Yeah,
act.
Do act. Yeah. Though there is something to be said about reverie as well.
What's acting. Reverie?
Reverie is, I love reverie.
What a word.
What a word. There's Blanchard is the philosopher, I believe, who has the poesy of reverie or something like that, a book about it. It's just a wonderful state to be in if you're a creative person. It's thinking that is not externalized. It's your inner world. It's playing inside your inner world, so to speak, or letting your inner world move whichever way it may, and just following along with the waves, sort of like bobbing in the water in the Caribbean.
Wow. Can humans think without language?
Oh my God, I love this question because this was a central question to me as growing up. And, I started reading, I studied philosophy in college. I got into Wittgenstein's, Tractatus, probably said that no, there's only words, only language. But then he later changed his mind a little bit. And I think I changed my mind as well. I had this argument with a friend, Lara Auerbach, who's actually an international recognized composer nowadays. She's really amazing. And she insisted that no, there's the pre-verbal thinking, there's non-verbal thinking. And I kind of argue with her that, well, all thinking will eventually come to the point of language. Otherwise, you can't express it. You can't do anything with it. And she argued against that because she was a musician and a professional, like she was really 100% creative musical person. And so I'm coming around to her position now that I think language is a layer on top of things. Again, maybe connected to the emotions, but it's not. Thought happens pre-verbal, but boy, does it get sharpened and interesting when you throw words at it.
Yeah.
It also changes.
Yeah.
Language changes thought.
Yeah, and then Stravinsky, she's probably covered it. Stravinsky says music doesn't mean anything, or there's whatever his big speech was, it means nothing. But it does, but it's a different. Well, let's just ask her, what's more fundamental, language or music?
I think language is music.
Yeah.
Language is a type of music, very specialized type of music. That's why I love the wake, because that language is an ear language. It's it comes in here first and only then starts making all kinds of senses.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of Joyce, is he turned an eye experience reading black ink on white paper into an ear experience.
Yes.
But not just that. He said you got to have both.
Yes.
You can't listen to the wake like Ulysses. You can listen to it being read on a radio show. You can't do that with the wake. It's stupid.
You can't.
I mean, you can, but you're not getting it.
No, you're not getting it. However, what I've been doing lately, and I recommend this to anybody who's listening or watching this, I've been putting on Derek Pyle's project, Waywords and Mean Signs. He's got a few recordings there that are actually quite excellent, because a lot of them are, there's music.
It's just like add music to the background.
Is it Robert Amos, I believe, is Amos, is a reader who pronounces every syllable.
Oh yeah,
very clearly. So he reads it slowly, so almost a little bit too slow.
Is it sound flowing, or is it too stuck?
No, exactly. It's a little bit between. It's not quite flowing, but it's also not quite stuck.
Yeah.
And once he gets a little bit going, it's a little bit better. But also then you start missing those little, every vowel and every syllable counts. So I've been listening to that, but also falling asleep. As I'm falling asleep, I listen to that, and it goes really deep into my brain. And writing the history of yourself in furniture. It's just things like just various phrases are stuck in my head. And then I love.
Wait, what does that mean? In furniture? You mean
that's a quote from the Wake. Writing the history of himself in furniture. As I'm falling asleep, that stuff goes into my head, and it's lovely. I love it, because then you wake up in the morning and you have this
the history of myself or his self?
Of himself in furniture. I believe that's a direct quote. I mean, I could be a little bit wrong.
The history of himself, writing the history of himself
in furniture. I believe that's a direct quote.
Do you think he got that from Eric Satie? They were both in Paris then.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, Joyce was such a sponge.
That could be.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So listening is an aspect of the wake, but it's not the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you have to look. No, the key to the wake to me is how people flub. I'm not a good reader. I'm a idiot. I go through. I like.
And those mistakes are precious.
Andy Warhol, they talk like this sometimes, and they purposely mock speaking. And I sort of do that so it flows better. But there's these people who come to the Dublin Sweeney's Wake, and that's the most amazing one. You should tune in on Facebook and just watch it.
Okay.
That's every Tuesday.
Did they
Unbelievable.
read it out loud, talk about it?
Yeah, no, this is it. 28 years I've read Finnegan's Wake in Venice with people, and we do one page and we discuss it for 2 hours. So we read it about 3 times through. Everybody reads 2 lines. I get to Sweeney's 3 years ago because of COVID, podcast reading. 1 hour of the wake, you read as much as you want. One page.
I love it.
And then casual discussion at the end.
I think I like that better.
And I was like, this is way better. But I didn't abandon our way, because Austin Wake does it the same way we do it pretty much. New York Wake does it even more intense. But what you learn there is that everybody who's reading the Wake, you're concentrating on how they get the syllables or don't get them, or they flub a word.
Right.
And you're watching your script and you're hearing them. So it's if you're paying attention, it's really a great learning procedure. Like I'm sure Robert Moss is like, you can really go, but it doesn't always get the flow.
Right.
And this woman, so at the Sweeney's Wake, these people just show up and they're tourists. You know what Sweeney's is? It's a pharmacy that's sort of turned into a Joyce kind of tourist trap.
Right.
Sell lemon soap, but they have a lot of reading groups now on podcasts.
That's so cool.
And people wander in, like Lana Del Rey or all these celebrities, or people wander in, and sometimes they're like, oh, we're going to have a Finnegan's Wake reading club. Oh, okay, I'll join in. Have you ever read the Wake? No. And they just read. So you get somebody from Spain, and then you get someone from England, and then you get someone from America, and it's really wide with the people who come every week, which is Ohio, Texas, California, and the regulars in the Irish people. And then you get these people who wander in there, like we did a couple of weeks ago, and she's a pro actress.
Oh,
so she might know the Wake a little. She sort of says, yeah, I've dabbled in it. But her reading was off the charts.
Wonderful.
Because she knew how to not stumble like, over a couple syllables. She flew through the syllables like she knew the script.
Have you seen that Vimeo video about Gordon Levitt, the actor? I don't know his first name.
Yeah.
It's on Vimeo. If you just Google Vimeo.
Is it by
page
Rian Johnson?
439. He only reads page 439.
But that's Rian Johnson, I think. Rian Johnson's the big famous movie director. He made a film. But it's
not a film. This is just a little snippet that the guy did 7-8 years ago. Yes,
reading the Wake.
Page 439. If you Google that, you'll find it. It's on Vimeo.
Okay.
And the video aspect of it is quite wonderful. You worked with a videographer to create images for the reading. He's an actor, as you know.
No, I think it's Brian Johnson.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I just know that it's Gordon Levitt reading it.
Yeah, Gordon.
So you might have seen it already.
No, I want to.
I highly recommend that. Yeah. I send it to people who don't know the Wake, and they're like, "Oh my god!"
But they're not seeing the script.
No.
But they could pull.
No, but he reads it so well, and there's emotion, and the images make up for the fact that there's no text. The images, and again, it's an interpretation. It's the images are interpreting everything slightly. Their own kind of angle.
Okay. Wow. What a great divert. So Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Boy, am I familiar with that. Having grown up in 3 cultures and having to move and learn a whole new language, I had a lot of these moments where the language just did not work.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't know how to say something. Words were missing. I was mispronouncing things. Communication breakdowns were happening a lot to me. So horrible feeling. I never liked it. What happens when that happens is you try to find a way around it.
Yeah.
You try to go the detour way if the straight way doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Zen answer is forget language. You just
We don't need to, like T.S. Eliot said, when I speak to you, all you got to use words. No, you
No, you
don't.
So yeah.
Okay, basically, your observations of humans in general. Are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
Oh, we're almost entirely feeling beings.
Wow.
Almost entirely. I would say 99%. We're fooling ourselves if we think we're mostly thinking.
Wow. Okay, 2 Alan Turing questions.
Ooh.
Is thinking a function of the soul?
Can you function of the soul? I would, I mean, vague terms, but yeah, I would say so. I would say it's a function of your being. I don't think you catch it on the waves from somewhere else. You know, the paranoid version of thought and language. I think it does come out of your experiences, the totality view, which is, let's call it a soul.
Wow. Second Turing question. Can machines think?
No, absolutely not. I think it's even the question is a little bit off.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, there's so much talk about AI, which is a misnomer. We seem to be caught a little bit in this blind spot of our own making. This is our own mess.
Yeah.
We think it's the other, but it's just us.
Yeah.
In a different.
Roman, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Ooh, excellent question. Absolutely good question. I think meaning is happiness to me in a way. I don't subscribe to the sort of average happiness version of, like, you eat a cheeseburger, you're happy, or something. You have a milkshake, or you're on the beach and you're feeling happy. I think it does come somehow from meaning making. If you can make the meaning happy. If the meaning is happy, then you're happy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a lot of control over it, but I've always pursued meaning in its various forms. But I'm very skeptical if I do find it.
Wow.
I tend to turn it around, see it from behind, from underneath, from the sides, and it's always conditional.
Yeah. Did you get that more on your own, or more the way your parents raised you?
Don't know if you can separate the two.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Viktor Frankl says man's search for meaning. He says meaning tends to last, happiness doesn't.
Well, meaning changes.
Yeah.
Meaning changes, so I don't know if it lasts.
Yeah. Yeah, it changes. That's good.
I don't know. I'll give you a very basic kind of example real quick. Just my relationship with my wife, whom I love very much. We've been married for 27 years. The meaning of that relationship, even though there are certain constants in it, as far as the love and respect, that kind of, the basic stuff, but it keeps shifting. It keeps morphing.
Yeah. And
I think if I try to hold on to an idea, of something of a meaning, then I would have problems. I've had that throughout my life. Whenever, I guess it's a Buddhist kind of concept of don't hold on. So meaning has to pass. Meaning has to evolve and keep going. Good. Otherwise, if you take a snapshot of it, you think you got it, you only have a snapshot.
Yeah. So I say to the weight group, I says, doesn't matter what we're reading. It's the fact that we're in a group reading it together. We could be reading People magazine.
And that's why.
But let me just finish. Yeah. And then someone goes, the Wake's better than People magazine.
The Wake's definitely better.
But it's not. It's the same fucking thing.
But it is. But it gives you.
I know.
It opens up possibilities that People magazine may not. Now, however, if you read People magazine like you would the Wake, let's say you do a little Burroughs cut up on it, you do something with it.
Well, that's how we do read it. We just fly through it. But I mean, People started, man, they were doing Zappa, Beefheart, The Residents. They did weird shit back then. I don't think they do weird shit anymore. I mean, The Residents and People magazine, that's the Wake, Okay, so does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more detecting it, or more so creating it?
I think it's got to be in the creation. It's got to be in the act. I think I, I mean, again, I don't know. We could be
Yeah.
detecting. We could be antennas.
Yeah.
Those questions that are kind of metaphysical. I'm always
Yeah.
a little bit weary of them.
Yeah.
Um,
But
because
what I'm after is your
uh,
hunch or your guess.
my hunch is
But
that
it's good you're expressing your opinion. It's
yeah.
really, Roman, it's me and you versus the questions.
Hmm.
We're tackling like, does it more create? And people go, well, I want to go with the verb you brought up rather than the two nouns. So like this one, what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought for sure.
Wow, dude. None of these questions you are right or wrong, but that one you got right.
For sure, for sure. I
That's
think the universe is just made of thought.
yeah,
I
that
love
is
that theory,
amazing.
and I sometimes I spend some time with it. I like the wonderful British theater director, actor, and just all around genius Ken Campbell. I had this kind of approach to not, not believing things, but supposing them just for
Yeah.
fun. You suppose something and you hold that thought maybe for a day, for a week. So sometimes I do that. Sometimes I,
Yeah.
let's spend a day and
Yeah.
see if I, if I
Yeah.
like this, believing in God. I really
Yeah.
believe in God today,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah. Yeah.
suppose.
No, that's
You
very
just
good.
suppose it as opposed to
Yeah.
believing it.
In fact, Audre Lorde said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools.
Oh no, yeah.
Yvonne Rainer said you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Oh, it's a very old tool, actually.
Yeah.
It's a new tool for this age
Yeah.
because we seem to be caught in our reflection, a bunch of mirrors, a hall of mirrors, right?
Yeah.
With this technology surrounding us. The selfie is probably the emblematic image of this age. But I really think that if we slow down, and also try to resist the tyranny of the screen. We were talking a little bit
Yeah.
earlier before the start recording about
Yeah.
Zoom. I read somewhere years ago, and I wonder if it's true. I'm assuming it's true that about 3/4 of our brain power is devoted to visual processing.
Yeah.
And so our brains love to look at things and to see patterns, and that's why screens are so seductive.
Yeah.
Amazingly seductive. So I think that the new tool that we have right now to use to sort of continue with our human thriving,
Yeah.
which is what I started with, is an old tool of slowing down, paying attention, and not being bamboozled by the visual.
Yeah.
Trying more the audio,
Yeah.
trying more analog things as opposed to digital. I think the digital has really taken over our lives, and I yearn for the analog a little bit.
Good answer, dude. You're really smart. Because people don't know it's an old tool and it's called slowing down. Well, that's not a tool.
Oh,
it is a tool.
It's
it
a
is
major tool.
But I mean, you really are articulate, and I appreciate it, Rome.
Thank you.
You really get this. So that visual processing line was good too, because this neuroscientist came to our meeting. He says, sight is the dominant sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's 5 senses. It's called sense ratio shifting. So when you read a book, you're more visual, eye oriented. But when you read Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people, you turn your eye into an ear.
Yeah.
And so that's sense ratio shifting. So here's one I never asked, but I love it, is tell me the activity humans could do where all 5 senses are working equally.
Oh, lovemaking.
Well, that's the one I get the most.
Well, I mean, it's the obvious one, because you're fully engaged.
Yeah.
All of your senses are engaged. I mean, it's not only the obvious one; it's the wonderful one. It's
the wonderful one.
This is it.
Good.
It's
good.
It's how we propagate our species and how we thrive.
Yeah. Well, listen to this. What's the best thing for a human being? Someone said, to propagate. To keep us going. I was like, I never got that answer in 40 years.
About that.
I mean, dude, I've got everything.
That's not my answer.
Question,
right?
Well, it's interesting when I get something other than love.
Other
I
than
mean,
usual, right.
50 to 60%. What's the best thing for you? Mean they go love. Oh,
Right.
that's great. So anyways, but just that you fact, okay, so now what new toy do you suggest?
New toy?
Yeah.
Do I suggest what new toy? Oh gosh, something that spins.
Yeah.
I love movement and spinning. My wife is a dance teacher. My kids are dancers.
Yeah.
I think any toy that will help you move,
Yeah.
or make you feel like you're moving is wonderful.
What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I don't.
Wow, way to go. What's the difference
worry.
between worry and concern?
Worry is a self-defeating system. It's the problem with worry is that then if you think that if you stop worrying, like let's say you want to stop worrying, but then you're going to worry that if you stop worrying, whatever you're worrying about would come true. So it's a catch-22. Worry is a gimmick. It's not good. People give it up. Don't worry, be happy, as the song goes.
Yeah.
What was the second part of the question? I forgot.
Well, concern, because here's where, when my mom died at the funeral service, I went. There's a lot of people in this room that worried that Dolores worried too much, because to me it was her concern. She was concerned about people.
Yeah.
And people go, "You worry." Well, what's the difference between worry and concern?
I think concern is a little bit gentler. Concern doesn't have that tightness in your stomach. Concern is loving. Concern is sympathetic. Worry is a lot of times selfish, I think.
Okay.
I think concern is a little bit more simpatico, so to speak.
Beautiful, dude. You're doing great. So McLuhan learned from Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Because it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
W.S. Merwin, the poet, has a wonderful poem called Convenience. And it ends something like, we're all going to die from our conveniences. And it's ringing more and more true to me.
Yeah.
The easier, quote unquote, and very important air quotes, the easier our lives get, I think the further we move away from happiness.
Yeah.
From fulfillment. Maybe not even happiness, fulfillment.
Fulfillment's a great word.
I really do. I think it's almost it's a struggle now to deconvenience yourself.
Yeah.
It's a struggle to turn away from conveniences.
Oh God, that's
because it's just so easy.
Oh man. Do artists have moral obligation?
I talked a lot about this on the podcast, on the Feeling Bookish podcast. I don't think it's an obligation. I think certain artists can't help but do that. For instance, William Gaddis, one of my favorite writers. I guess you can call all of his books just angry shouts at the culture and what it's doing to itself. There's a strong, not in the John Gardner kind of sense, on moral fiction, of his famous book, but more in a very kind of innate, pre-philosophical sense of moral.
Yeah.
So innately what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
I think if artists see that and can express it very, very well, I'm very much drawn to that kind of literature. Not moralizing literature, but literature that just lays out the naked lunch, so to speak. So here's your lunch, but here it's naked. Something's wrong with the culture, and if it's pointed out in a creative, artistic way, without preaching, without moralizing, by actually using literature and specific characters or language use, I think that's, yes, I'm very much, I think, attracted to that kind of thinking and writing.
Wow, so well done, Roman. This is fun. So are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
That reminds me of John Cage. John Cage said, "People are afraid of new ideas. I'm just afraid of the old ideas."
Dude, that's where I got the question.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I love Cage. I remember that quote very well. It's one of my favorite quotes, actually, and I stick by it. I mean, I think the new ideas are the exciting ones. A lot of times, the problem is that the new ideas are old ideas disguised in new
Well,
emperor's clothes type of deal. So you
the-
got to be careful.
Yeah.
You got to be critical.
Yeah.
You got to have well-balanced emotional approach to things. Otherwise, you're going to be at the mercy of the latest and the maybe not so greatest.
Yeah. So Roman, there's the proof right there. They can't see it very good, but look at question 107.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
more afraid of new ideas or old ideas. Consider I do the John Cage.
John,
quote.
yeah,
now,
there you go.
Now look at
I
how
finished
you
it
have
for you.
ESP. Check this out. People are very open-minded about new things as long as they're exactly like the old ones.
Yes.
You know, Charles Ketter, he invented the intermittent windshield.
Oh, yeah. There was a movie about it. Right. That's right.
That was good. I love when people have ESP. You got it. Okay. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yeah. How's this one? It involves the dead. I was somewhere in St. Petersburg. It was dusk, which is usually, the witching hour, especially when you're a kid. It was, dusk in St. Petersburg in the middle of winter is harsh. It's gray. You got all the communist architecture around you. It's gray and horrible looking. And so walking down the street, my father had just had a heart attack, right, at 35.
Wow.
And we're walking, I think after visiting, and we're passing this very dark and scary looking building. And I asked my mom, what is this building? And she says, it's the morgue. And that's where they put dead people. And she was, I guess, upfront about it for some reason. Maybe she shouldn't have been, but that was very scary. And I remember that word, I guess, because I'm a word guy, maybe even back then, morgue. It's to this day, gives me the willies, that word.
But he didn't die. He had the heart attack.
No. It's just,
I was
giving you the context.
But the context is you go, what's that building? She says, the morgue.
And I was equating my dad a little bit like, oh, is he going to end up there? Or, so that's probably why I remember it, because it was an emotional, like, whoa.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
It's both.
Yeah.
It has to be both.
Yeah. Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, and what's kind of like a role model, and what specific was that impact?
In my immediate family. Well, see, my family was always very small. We have relatives, but we almost never, at least I never almost met them. I mean, I had one grandmother, one aunt that I met, and their family. So my family was always very small. So my role models, I looked for them outside of my family.
Well, but
my dad, my mom, I think. My dad or my mom.
What did you get mainly
musician.
from your mom, and what did you get mainly
my
from
mom
your dad?
Was wonderful, like I told you earlier, she was a wonderful literary person who lived and breathed poetry, Russian poetry particularly. Nice. She was an expert at declaiming poetry in that Russian style, for the whole hall, big hall.
Yeah.
So definitely a literary influence from her. But my dad, amazing musician, natural musician, played in bands a lot of years of his life, never learned how to read music.
What genre?
Jazz, kind of popular jazz music, a lot of Russian kind of piano. Yeah.
Wow.
Piano, bayan, which is a type of accordion.
Really? Wow.
He played the accordion as well. He was just a natural, wonderful musician, and that was a huge influence on me. I think that's why I was musical.
Yeah. So then outside your immediate family, same question.
I have a bunch. I have 2 or 3 people that I kind of looked up for. Raymond Smullyan, the mathematician, logician.
What'd you get from him?
The wonderful love of self-reference, jokes, being almost a Taoist sage while alive, not later. Not after being alive. Being around Raymond, I don't know if you know Raymond. He was a friend of Martin Gardner's. Wonderful, mathematician, magician, musician. Was also a pianist. He lived in upstate New York. I was a big fan of his books. The Tao is Silent was one of his books from 1977. Wonderful book. So he's kind of interested in Eastern philosophy, but he was also a Western philosopher and a professional philosopher. The love of language, the love of recursion, the love of logic and music, and he defined Zen in that book, or maybe it was Taoism that no, I think it was defined Zen as an intense aesthetic awareness combined with an inner serenity.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so that was kind of my goal since I was 14, since
Wow.
I've started reading Raymond Smullyan. And I learned a lot of my English from George Carlin, who was a local,
Wow.
right? He lived in Venice.
I worked for George.
Get out.
Yeah.
George was basically St. George to me. When
Yeah.
I got to this country, I went to the Greenwood Music Camp in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts, hardly knowing English, right? Got into the first summer there, 13 and a half years old. A kid has snuck in a Carlin tape, I think it was AM, FM, or maybe some other occupation fool, one of his tapes, early tapes, into our little, sleeping area, and he would play it every night. He would play it like for 3-4 weeks. We would just listen to it and laugh. Now, with my broken English, I didn't understand a lot of it, but I absorbed a lot of his love of language, because Carlin was in love with the language. And the fact that he swore a lot, it was very attractive to me too, because he used it the right way, like Mark Twain would use swearing, artistically, or for a point, not just willy-nilly.
That's good. That's the line I used by George. How can you ever have a civil war?
There's so many like that.
That's
so many,
like
amazing. I mean, that was a major part of his comedy, is his language and how we are bamboozled by it. So, you got Smullyan, you got Carlin. I think were major influences.
That's good. Let's go on, because you can bring up more as
no, I think those are
that's pretty dang good right there. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
No, thank God.
Thank God. And do you pray?
I do. I pray, not in a conventional sense. Because I read Robert Anton Wilson as a teenager a lot. I really imbibed a lot of him, and through him I got into people like Aleister Crowley and the whole magic thing, and I experimented with that in my 20s and 30s. Experiment with some ceremonial magic kind of stuff. But basically, it's for me, it doesn't mean anything. It's just if I can sort of imagine, let's say, a safety bubble around my kids when they go out to do something. I do. That's what I mean by just imagery, and just kind of like there's no specific destination for my prayers. Just kind of putting it out there.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
After I die, go back and do it again.
That's good. Go back and do it again.
Raymond mentioned in one of his books that he doesn't see why reincarnation should happen in any kind of time frame. He's like, why can't I be incarnated as Lao Tzu, for instance?
Yeah,
you go back in time. There's no reason why that shouldn't happen. So
that's also
go back and do it again. Maybe I would love to meet my wife again. I mean, I really hit it off with her this lifetime.
That's Paul Krasner says, I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives.
Past lives. I love Krasner too, by the way. I communicated with him a little bit before he died.
Good.
I lived in Astoria, just half a mile from where he was born and raised.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah.
He's an amazing human. I love him.
Yeah.
In fact, I asked him all these questions about 5 different times, and he asked these kind of questions.
I bet he gave you some great answers.
And no, Nancy's sitting right there. And I would ask him the question, this or that, and he would crack up, and then he'd lean over and he goes, Nancy, how should I answer?
Hey, what do you think?
And then she would say something. He goes, I'm not going to say that.
Oh man, I wish I'd met him.
Yeah.
Do you know if he ever finished his novel? I know he's working on a novel.
That's a good question.
Is there any way we can find out somehow?
Yeah, well, it's whoever's got his estate, probably his
I'd love
daughter,
to find out,
because Nancy died. And so I'm not sure who has his estate, but she should get it out there. But
I've been trying to promote just the fact that he existed to people.
Oh yeah,
people don't know that he was such a wonderful father of the underground press and everything. But anyway,
do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I struggled with that during the orange orangutan rule. I did, because I'm not a political person, but I got sucked into that whole maelstrom, and I struggled with that question because and then I had a dream. In which I forgave him, which was a very odd dream. But it loosened something in me, and it felt right.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in evil in that traditional beliefs, but I suppose it exists. I
Yeah.
suppose it takes forms
Yeah.
and then mutates and continues to somehow exist.
Yeah,
Um,
your suppose
Yeah.
and believe thing. Well, suppose that it's really strong what you're
it's
saying
absolutely,
because
it's amazing.
again you have ESP. Anticipate next question. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob of the samurais. Keep your friends close, and your enemies closer. JFK says, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I think if you acknowledge your enemy as an enemy, you don't have to do that, though. You can acknowledge them as something else.
Yeah.
So that if it appears to be opposing to you, some sort of an enemy kind of situation, then you can reframe things.
Yeah.
To
You can
reframe it so
that's good.
so that you don't. A lot of my life has been spent sort of not following the usual thoughts, trying to see the context.
Yeah.
I'm heavily influenced by people like Gregory Bateson, and complex systems, and thinking in totalities as opposed to parts. So I think if you can reframe your enemy, then you can sort of neutralize that. Also, maybe another way of thinking about an enemy is thinking of it as stress. Stress is good for us if it's pointed, if it's specific. It makes us grow. It makes us stronger. So if you view an enemy as a stressor, and then have an ability to let go of it when it's time to let go of it, because our problem is we hold on to stresses, and then we go to sleep with stress, and then we die of heart attacks.
Yeah.
So letting go, accepting it as a stressor and dealing with it, and then letting go.
Yeah.
So it's a two-part process.
Letting go. You are wise. And again, you amazingly have ESP. We're like on the same river run together, because Nassim Taleb said, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. And then a friend said, well, villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And then to your man, Gregory Bateson, when the criminal gets caught, does he go, oh, wow, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, oh, I did something morally and socially wrong? So there's a lot of prompts there, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
Oh, no. Oh, no, absolutely no. The whole eye for an eye, I believe the official term is retributive ethics.
Yeah.
I am against that. I've been against that for a long time. Raymond Smullyan pointed me to the right direction. He also wrote a little bit about retributive ethics and how it's doesn't agree with him, as a person. And so I think we have to get rid of. I think our society is based on it, biblically and everything like that. It's a deep. It's funny. I can think of the Russian word and I can't think of the English word.
What's the Russian word?
Zanoza.
Wound.
We get a splinter.
It's
a deep splinter in our consciousness.
Splinter.
Because of this whole because emotions lead, not thoughts lead, right? Emotions lead. So if you hurt my family, boy, I'm coming after you.
Yeah.
Right. The eye for an eye situation, and that's got to go. That's got to go if we're going to progress as a species.
Yeah.
It's always amazing
when the white supremacist goes into the black church or grocery store and mows down. The black people go, we forgive them, and it's like, what? How does that happen?
Not forgiveness. It's different. It's not forgive. I don't think you should forgive.
But what did you use? You used the word forgive, right? No. What did you?
I'm anti-retributive. I can't pronounce it. Retributive ethics.
Retributive.
I don't know what the alternative is. I think it's our almost mission as a species to find this alternative to this retribution.
I think it is forgiveness. So you know what Twain said? Forgiveness is the smell the flower gets off when the foot steps on it.
I like that.
So I mean, what else can you do but forgive? I mean,
like that.
you're gonna
No,
hate.
look. I think forgiveness again, because you're using words, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
roiling stuff underneath that
Yeah.
word. So that's what I'm a little bit
Roiling?
roiling and boiling. There's a lot of
Okay.
the
Yeah.
meaning keeps shifting. Meaning is never fixed. So
Yeah.
forgiveness has a meaning, but it's never fixed.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the context. And then, of course, I was just reading my phone, my notes. One of my notes says, "Don't mix contexts. Don't mix context," like with an exclamation mark. And then I'm realizing I love puns so much and love the wake because of the puns. And what do puns do? They mix contexts.
Exactly.
So I don't know.
You know,
It's
McLuhan,
wonderful and open, and I
yeah,
don't know.
there's a great line. McLuhan said, Joyce used the pun that something about the paradoxical exuberance of language of being through language. He used the pun to like deal with this paradoxical exuberance
Absolutely.
of being through language.
I think the pun is the key to the wake. I think the pun is one of the keys to the wake.
Yeah, like the word we came across the other day. It's almost better than laugh tears. Confusional. Like you go into the confessional, and you know what it is? It's Jimi Hendrix. Is it love or confusion? It's confusion and confessional.
I love it.
How simple. Confusional.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh man, this is great. Okay, so right into Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. Basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should we go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when we can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, I think theatrical stuff is also part of life, right? You can't separate it. And it's we love beginnings, ends, middles, and ends, right? We love stories, so I think that goes a lot to our story loving. My father was a projectionist when he was young. One of the first projectionists in his town. We're talking like,
in Russia,
50s in Russia. Yeah, he would play American westerns and movies. That's when he fell in love with musicals. So he kept on told us a lot of stories about it. But it's I think we like packaged things. We like the and stories. So when stories are packaged, and then you go back to the image and the primacy of the image for us, and then you go to the movie theater, and what do you see? Huge screen, right? It's not a small screen. It's bigger than life.
They asked Tom Waits when the first big Tom Waits movie came out, his concert film. He goes, "How's it feel to be on the big screen?" He says, "When I bent over, my underwear looked so big coming out of the back of my pants."
Great comment.
That was a great comment. My God.
Yes. Perfect.
But this is Hollis Frampton, experimental filmmaker. Narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
Can you forget to die? What an interesting question. I guess we'll find out. For me, I'm hoping to forget about it, but it sounds like from everything I've gathered as my 53rd trip around the sun, it looks like it's going to come to all of us. So I can certainly forget about thinking about it. Though that's not advisable, right? Memento mori, you always going to want to have it in the back of your mind. There's the finish line. But I'm also a bit of a Taoist. I was always a Taoist without even knowing it. And then I discovered Taoism, particularly the Zhuangzi, not the Lao Tzu, but the playful anecdotal stories, the butterfly, the logic games. And so I don't call it death. I call it the great transformation. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. Maybe not too soon. But again, just from my habit of reframing things and maybe the tricultural bringing, my the way I was brought up, I just don't like to think in regular terms.
Yeah.
So I like switch things around and see what happens.
It's good because people get freaked out on that question because they don't know if I'm asking them literally or metaphorically. So they go, "What do you mean? Can I forget to die?" And you really did that. You went to both ends of the spectrum, literally and metaphorically.
It's funny that our culture right now, by the way, is so enamored with that word literally that it's applied and now it's lost its meaning.
Yeah.
And now it's literally what I said, or literally what,
Yeah.
it's become part of us, our speech. And I wonder if that's a little indication of our move away from metaphor somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way of thinking there. But
The great saying quotes is something I specialize in. Repeating. Harold Bloom's a master idiot. So what? You can
his memory is amazing.
But you can repeat quotes, but how do you take them a little farther or really put them into your word context?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can say that, like George Carlin, whatever happened to letting kids stare out the window?
Yes.
I says, no, change it to whatever happened to letting kids stare at their cell phone, because that is their window. So there might not be nothing on their cell phone. It might have lost their power, but they're still going to stare at it.
Yeah.
So that's a way to, like, we just stare at the window. What do you look? So Robert Browning said, our reach should exceed our grasp, or what is heaven for?
Mm.
And McLuhan said, our reach should exceed our grasp, or what is a metaphor?
I love it. I love it. I usually say I never metaphor. I didn't like. And metaphors are central. Metaphors have always fascinated me. I'm always
well, all language is metaphorical.
It's all metaphorical, but the way we make meaning out of this metaphor, these metaphors, it's where we jump from analogy to we jump these jumping stones.
Yeah, it's that. Etymology Online is my favorite website. It's like everything you study, you just go to etymology and see where the word came from. Doesn't mean it's the same, but it's nice to find, which is just some guy sitting in an office going, yeah, this word came from this. It's bullshit. No. But it has some roots, because the best is when they go, of unknown origin. Well, every word is of unknown origin, but the best words come from the back alleys in London. From the fucking hoodlums.
Yes.
And it's like, whoa.
Yes, and the best thing that happened to American language is the African American, the sort of jazzy, that influence. Because otherwise it would be very
stilted. Me another question.
That
is like,
and there's, the grammar rules are arbitrary as well. You can be a grammar Nazi.
Yeah.
And claim that this source says this, and it's been done like this for hundreds of years, but it's just convenience or whatever. It's just habit.
Yeah.
It's all mutable.
Sunra says planet Earth. That is, to me, like.
And I love the fact, because it makes you think differently. If you start changing the usual language and maybe mispronouncing things, so you start thinking differently. I used to be, because I was an editor for many years. And a copy editor, so I would be like a stickler. This is the way it's done. This is the correct way. But I've matured since, and
matured.
I'm allowing language to just be playful.
Bingo, you again, ESP. So tell me, you're growing up being a reader. What was the tipping point to say, I'm going to be a writer? You go, that's what my calling is.
Yeah.
Is there, you're studying in high school, college. Where was the tipping point? I'm going to pursue this.
So I started as a reader in Russian, right? So I would read Russian books, mostly children's books, because I was a child. And I moved to Israel, and I kept on reading Russian books, some Hebrew books. And I started reading literature really seriously when I came here to America. I would read science fiction, Isaac Asimov.
You're a teenager.
I'm a teenager. I'm 14 years old. I'm sitting in.
You moved to Boston.
I'm in Boston. I'm in the North Shore. I'm sitting in homeroom, and I'm reading this new book that I picked up. It's a relatively short book by Dostoevsky, Notes from the Underground. I'm reading it in Russian because my parents had it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll pick up this book. Looks interesting.
In English or
in Russian?
I'm
reading it in Russian. I'm sitting in homeroom, in American homeroom,
Yeah.
with American kids around me
Yeah.
doing their like, what are you doing, man? 14 years old, and I'm reading.
Good imitation.
I'm
of
reading.
kids.
I'm a sick man. Yeah, in Russian, and I'm like, what? And that book just captivated me and like made me go, oh, I need to read more of this, because of
Yeah.
the difference between the inner world of that book and my world of being in
Yeah.
homeroom in Peabody
Yeah.
at 9:15,
Yeah.
waiting for my first class, was quite stark.
Yeah.
And I preferred the world in the book.
Wow.
So I'm an autodidact. I read through high school a ton of mostly novels, because I really like to, I really love English prose. I got
Yeah.
addicted to English prose early on.
Yeah.
And when I discovered Joyce in the library, and I opened
Not
that book,
not an assignment.
no.
Would you start?
I
What
never.
Joyce did you start with?
The Wake.
Are you kidding? Did you go back and do all of
Of course
Joyce?
I did. Of course I did.
All of it?
Of course I did.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a
Wow.
completist when it comes to authors that I absolutely love. I have to read everything by them. Thomas Bernhard, Gaddis, Joyce, Dostoevsky, Gogol. I mean, once I find somebody who just lights my fire, I just have to go through everything, because,
Wow.
like I said, I'm an addict.
Wow.
Yes, I'm a prose addict.
Okay, so you're a writer. Have you done creative writing, fiction or nonfiction?
I've done a bunch of nonfiction for the web. I stopped calling myself a writer a while ago, because I simply don't do any of it,
Yeah.
or I do very little of it. I am. There's some thought behind this, and maybe it's an excuse. I don't know if it's an excuse for my own fears of writing, but I think there's too much writing going on right now. There's too much stuff out there.
Yeah.
And so Adam Thirlwell, I don't know if you saw that in The Guardian a few days ago, maybe last week, had an interesting article, and I kind of respect him as a writer. He also points the same thing out, that there's too much writing going on. A lot of this writing is banal and hateful, and comes straight out of emotions without going through the filter of the brain. And it's just so easy to do it now.
Yeah.
Post it online, blog, text. So there's too much of that. So where do you go to find the good stuff, right? And this goes back to the question we had before. Slow down. Look backwards. He suggests to look at the margins of literature right now, where the design zines are, the pamphleteers out there, people who are maybe unsure about what they're doing exactly, but they're not doing it on a blog, they're not doing it on any digital platform. So it's fascinating, because yes, there's something offline now that's worth pursuing. There's something offline that is not in here that's worth pursuing. And I want to pursue
copy.
That. Not necessarily just hard copy. The reason why I wanted to meet with you, for instance, as opposed to the Zoom thingy, because there's just something that's different about physical versus the digital. There's something, and I am not a metaphysician. I'm not going to say it. It's just something ineffable. I think it's something real. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to attempt to define it.
Well,
but
the
I think
beauty
we all feel
is that you insisted, and I could accommodate you with documenting this in the podcast YouTube zone, and we both are satisfied, because it's like, I did this for 40 years, and it was always like, well, when I get to your town or you get to my town, and now it's like I do 4 a week and I'm overloaded, but it's like, why stop? It's just like unbelievable how much I learned just today talking with you. This has been an unbelievable learning experience for me. And is it different? Yeah. But I insist. I won't,
well, it's not no, but it's and.
It is.
Yes,
but it is like one of our Wakians for 20 years says, when are we going to return to the library? I goes, I'm not. And he's like, well, I do too many Zooms. I goes, well, drop one of them and come to ours. But, that's just like he's holding his ground and I'm holding my ground. And it's just like, sorry, but it is very interesting, because what you just said gave me new life into doing.
I think maybe once in a while,
right, my interviews,
or do your book club once in a once
Yeah.
every 6 months, you
Yeah.
do it like you have a party together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this, I'm telling you, there's
Yeah.
something happens where people
Yeah.
are together, you know,
Yeah. Well, the
offline.
big one is my wife's a pro jazz singer, so all the concerts we produce constantly, you know, it's just there's still live events going on all the time. So, and here's the flip. Having COVID for 3 years in Venice, I was still able to ride my bike down to the boardwalk and see my friends, homeless or not,
Nice.
every day.
Nice.
You
So
keep a
lucky.
little distant,
Yeah.
but you wear a mask or whatever. But even now, you know, no one wears a mask, and I don't think it's COVID-y, but it's still, we were still able to live. Sort of like the flukiest thing of COVID was, as soon as it hit, you ride your bike and there was no traffic and raccoons were running across Lincoln Boulevard. It was like, holy fuck, we've reached nirvana. Because, you know, basically I'm not a Luddite. I don't have a cell phone. Is 3 things ruin the world: TV, cars, and guns. They all fucking ruined us. But again, that's not what McLuhan preaches. He says everything has services and disservices. So this guy goes, McLuhan hated TV. And I goes, well, he didn't hate it. He just wanted to, and he did not like it, but he was the god of TV studies, or, you know, the media guru. And basically I said to the guy, well, would you, I don't watch TV. I goes, would you watch a TV show of McLuhan talking about TV? And there is an amazing amount of McLuhan talking about TV and media on YouTube.
No, yeah, I've seen some of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, second order observations. Sometimes, you know, you go to
second order
observations. You know, when you I don't know, you know, you go to a beautiful setting. Let's say you travel down to Arizona, or you go down to the beach over here, and you look at the beach, and you're like, it looks just like a postcard.
Oh yeah, that's the
or a picture or something.
No, the McLuhan joke is the mom's pushing the baby buggy down the street, and the guy goes up to the baby buggy. He looks at the baby and goes, wow, what a beautiful baby. And the mom goes, you should see her picture.
Good one. Good one.
Okay, so let's just say you're writing your nonfiction for these 2 questions. A screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're writing?
Oh, wonderful question. Intentionality in general is very problematic for me.
Yeah.
I haven't squared my thinking with intentionality yet.
Yeah.
So it may be premature to answer that. I think if you intend too clearly, you fail. If you intend too vaguely, you'll fail.
Wow.
So there's somewhere a sweet spot. I think every artist has a method of getting to that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Every good artist.
Yeah.
I haven't found that sweet spot.
Yeah. No, once you find it, dude, you're fucked.
Well,
that's the resonating intervals where it's
yeah.
at. But again, that's fine, because I mean, just to read your bio, former writer or something,
part-time writer, full-time idler.
Full-time idler. Yeah. I was like, he's my hero. That's like, people go, what do you do? I go, nothing effectively.
Yeah, I love that.
That's
it.
Great
We're 2 peas in the pod. I love it.
We are like-minded. So Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking about your reader when you're writing?
Oh, another very problematic thing. I think you can't really.
Yeah.
If you do, you'll fail, or you will come up with something lesser than good. Lesser than good.
Yeah.
But you do have to have some sort of an idea. Like when I write people told me that I write great emails, or great letters. Really, is what it started. Now became emails. It's because I have somebody specific in mind that I'm writing to. But my best writing in that email or letter comes out when I stop thinking about that person and just try to describe what's going on or some idea that I have. That's my best writing. So again, there's got to be some sort of a sweet spot between knowing that you're writing for others, but not being too specific of who that
Yeah.
who those others are.
Yeah.
Um,
That's good. Roman, truly amazing. You're really articulate, and what you're saying, I feel as though I'm getting it.
oh, wonderful.
I'm getting what you're saying. And so McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. He said human sensorium.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So knife and fork extend our teeth, eyes, the eyelids extend, or could be extended by the shutter in a camera or a projector.
Mm-hmm.
Even like non-tangible, say religion or philosophy, might be an extension of consciousness. What does the writing utensil extend for you? Whether it's a keyboard or a pen, what humanness is extended?
Oh, a tiny, tiny sliver of humanness. It's so small. It's so small. I don't know
But
what
I'm
it is.
asking, you don't know what humanness.
I'm going to give you the volume of it. It's
a tiny sliver.
Trickle. And therefore, that's why writers are frustrated. That's why artists are frustrated. If they're not frustrated, they're not real artists, because you can't goddamn say it all.
Wow.
You can try, but it's a tiny, tiny, the spigot is just a little bit, you turn it on, it's like a trickle of water. And boy, but we're parched. We need that water.
Wow.
We really need it, but there's an ocean behind this water.
You can't even say what it is. You're just saying the amount.
Yes.
That is heavy. What do you think Joyce was extending with his writing utensil? What humanness? What human sensorium?
Freaking love and hope.
Love and hope.
Love and hope. I think he that's why I continually return to Joyce, and particularly The Wake. I mean, I like Ulysses. I wouldn't say I love it, which is strange, because I love the prose. The prose is amazing.
Yeah.
But The Wake so much supersedes for me Ulysses that it almost pales in comparison. So I what was the question again? Sorry.
Let's just go into Joyce a little. What you said, what humanness did he extend with his writing?
So I turned to him for that
love and hope.
That love and hope, because he's not your regular European dour writer. You read people like Peter Handke or somebody like that, or Krasnojarski, the European masters, the modern ones. And it's dour. It's dark. It's powerful. It can be intensely aesthetically pleasurable. But the forecast is dark. Cloudy and rainy and dark. And so Joyce, when you read Joyce, the clouds open up. Rejoice. They open up. You have hope again for our failed humanity, even if it's, I don't know if it's failed, but it feels like it right now. So there's this opening, and I worship Joyce for that. I really I treat The Wake as a religious book. I suppose that it's a religious book. I don't believe that it is, but I do suppose on a regular basis that it is such a book. And so it gives me what I do is almost on a daily basis, I read The Wake out loud, random page for a random amount of time. Inevitably, whatever page I turn to, 5-10 minutes later, I'm laughing. Even if I'm in a bad mood to begin with or something, I'm laughing. Sometimes I'm laughing to the point of tears, laugh tears.
Well, that's it. You don't have to read.
And it's not because it's funny particularly, but because it's joyful and plays with everything. It's just playful.
It's like when I had Bob Dobbs on the radio, we would have people call in afterwards and say, "What'd you think?" And they go, "I don't know what that guy's saying, but I know he's saying something." It's like that's Joyce.
That's it.
Like people like, what the fuck? How can you? Have you ever read Finnegan's Wake? No, you can't read Finnegan's Wake. It's like, well, you can if you read out loud with a group of people, and then it's the typical line. You're talking to someone at a cocktail party, and then Ulysses comes up, and then you go, "What about The Wake?" And they go, "Oh, he went a little too far." It's like, but that's the whole point.
It's the accepted opinion. It's somebody didn't chew their thoughts. It's somebody just repeating somebody else's thoughts.
But it isn't. And you really got it. So you, what's your history? You found The Wake first as a teenager.
Yeah, I was 17 years old. I remember it very clearly.
But you didn't know it was supposed to be read out loud? Did you?
I didn't know anything, but look, this is what happened.
Right away?
No. I started with Robert Anton Wilson. So he's the guy.
pre.
Yeah,
Oh.
I read Illuminatus.
First, Robert Anton
I'm not
Wilson,
even sure
and
if
he got you into the
he
way.
got me into Joyce in general. Yeah, because I was reading the Russians. I was
Right.
and I was
That's
always
good.
looking for. And then I started
How'd you
reading
find Robert Anton Wilson as a teenager, though?
Harvard Square. Harvard Square is where I used to go because I lived in Peabody, about 15 miles from Cambridge. And as soon as I got my license at 16 and a half, I would hightail it to Harvard Square. You go to Harvard Square almost on a weekly basis, 3 times a week after school, on the weekends. I had a special even method to park at Harvard Square.
Yeah.
I had, you didn't have to be able to find parking. I had a whole method. And with 26 bookstores in 1 square mile.
Oh, Harvard Square, 26 bookstores
In 1 square mile at the time, not anymore.
And but were you growing up reading sci-fi and comic books?
Yes, I grew up. I grew up when I moved to Israel. I started reading science fiction as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, and people like Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
Did
you read Theodore Sturgeon, More Than Human?
Oh, absolutely. I love Sturgeon.
You know that book?
Of course.
Well,
yes.
You know it's Frank Zappa and Phil Lesh's favorite book?
I think I've heard something like that.
What's so big?
I never enjoyed Sturgeon that much. I mean, I liked some of his stuff. More Than Human is the first, I think, one of the first novels to deal with this sort of collective consciousness, or splitting up consciousness into various characters. But it's really one consciousness. So it played around with that kind of idea, and I think it was one of the first books to do that. Sturgeon is wonderful for his ideas. He's funny.
Yeah.
Not my favorite writer, but I mean, I just read everything. I read everything.
And then where'd you find Terrence McKenna? Post Robert?
Oh,
and Post Awake?
It was post Awake. McKenna I found, I think, once I got into psychedelics. Which wasn't whether that far.
But The Wake was pre-psychedelics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not that much pre.
Yeah.
So I started reading The Wake at 17. At 18, I had my first acid experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then when did you first read Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people at the New York?
Yes, because it took a while. It took me years. In 2006.
So from what age are you at 2000?
So from 1988 when I started reading it.
1988
to
2006. You were just reading it by yourself.
I was by myself. I memorized the first page.
How'd you find The Wake in New York meeting?
When I moved to, I lived here. I lived on the West Coast in Orange County for 10 years. That's when some of my kids went. Noam and Ariana grew up a little bit here. My kids, and then I moved to New York for a job, and it was such a horrible job, and I was having a really tough time with it, and I was missing my inner life. My inner life was kind of pushed aside.
Wow.
Because I had to deal with New York and Wall Street. I was working on Wall Street. Wow. It was horrible.
Wall Street.
And so I really was like, I gotta invest in my inner life, or I'm going to die. I'm going to live Thoreau's, life of quiet desperation, and I really did not want that. And so this was pre-web, or maybe just around the time something was happening with the web. And I think I found them online.
Because there was this list of
it was an old list, right?
Finnegan's Wake reading club.
Yes, and I got in touch with Murray and Vicky, and they were very welcoming. And I got addicted to that group. I loved that group. Was once a month. I would come back from that group, and you can ask my wife this to confirm. Alive. I was alive. I had ideas. I was excited about things. It was just wonderful meetings.
Yeah. That's good. So on The Wake, how much percentage, stupid question, but just I'm bare bones honest. How much of The Wake do you get, and how much of The Wake did Joyce get? Just 0 to 100%. Just to get.
How much do I get?
Yeah.
I get maybe about 10 to 20%.
10 to 20?
Yeah.
Wow. And maybe. What do you think Joyce got?
I think he consciously got 80 to 90.
That's good. Consciously 80 to 90.
I think a lot of the stuff that he was laughing about, that Nora reported him laughing at night, it was stuff finding out just from the writing itself. Yeah. He was like, oh, well, there. He didn't intend, again, intentionality. He didn't intend to create that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a whole thing about him and loving chance, and the knock on the door being transcribed into The Wake, saying, keep the knock,
Yeah.
But that's a little bit different, I think. But yeah, I think because he exploded, right, the language or whatever the word is.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff came out of the that particular particle accelerated, that he did not.
Yeah.
Those subatomic particles, I don't think he anticipated all of them.
One thing that I'm curious about in Joyce is I will try to express myself in some mode of life or art as freely as I can and as wholly as I can, using for my defense the only arms I allow myself to use: silence, exile, and cunning. What do those three words mean to you? What do you think he's trying to say with those three words?
Silence, exile, and cunning. Unfortunately, I have a little bit of experience with that, direct experience, because I grew up in Soviet Russia, partially at least, and I saw the effect of that kind of regime on my parents, really particularly, and my older brother got beat up in school for being Jewish.
Wow.
I never experienced it directly myself, but I certainly felt it, like in my kindergarten teacher.
Beat up in Russia.
Yeah, for being Jewish. Certainly felt a little bit coldest for my kindergarten teacher. Like, she treated me differently from the other kids, and maybe because I'm just different, or I think it's because I was a little Jewish kid. So silence, exile. So my parents exiled themselves, basically. So it actually happened to us. Once you're born in the country and lived there for some years as a kid, you were kind of it. I'm Russian. I'm not, but I am. I'm not, but I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can never get rid of that. They certainly could never get rid of that. They were definitely very Russian, even in Israel and in America later on, the two immigrations. So they felt that, and they felt the cunning and the silence, because you couldn't say a lot of things. In Russia, my dad certainly experienced education discrimination. He couldn't get to the top university, even though his marks were off the chart. So, and they had those meetings that they had, the poetry readings, the sort of semi-clandestine meetings of the intelligentsia, when you're reading poetry, discussing literature, politics. That was cunning, because they had to do it kind of quietly. Couldn't post it on the bulletin board or whatever, saying, "Come to our meeting tonight." And so I've experienced it a little bit, so I think I know what he felt when he left Ireland, and maybe a smidgen of what he felt, or a little bit of the same coloration of what he felt.
In Roman, this movie Problema came out in 2010, and they sat 20, 30 great thinkers around the square where they burnt the books in
Germany.
Mm-hmm. And they asked him like 20 intriguing questions, and this was one of the most. Should we have the right to choose where we live?
Well, that seems to be a simple answer to that. Yes.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, I think we should have the right to choose, but it's like, I was raised in Flint, Michigan, and, came to Southern Cal and had this great life for 43 years here. In the real big picture, I feel I abandoned my hometown.
Yeah.
And yet, so you have some sense. Well, I'm Russia. You talk like you're an American.
Let me give you
and so you just explained what your parents, they had to have a revelation. What am I going to do with my family in our lives in this regime? And but should we have the right, shouldn't everyone bloom where they were born?
Well, a little bit like that. I almost agree with you, because I went back to Russia in 2014 after whatever 30 something years of being gone. And so we went to St. Petersburg, and then we went to visit the little building where I lived on the outskirts of the city. Well, first of all, when we landed, I immediately felt at home.
Did you?
Even though my language, my Russian right now is not the street Russian. I mean, I probably sounded very strange to them when I tried speaking Russian. But something about the smell, the terroir, the food, that northern hemisphere, I don't know. I like the cold. So I felt at home, but also foreign. And this has been kind of a theme in my life. It's interesting that you asked me that question, because it's a very much an important, perhaps the defining sort of element of my life is my peripatetic nature, that I don't.
What's that word mean?
Moving around.
Okay. Is it nomadic?
Nomadic, peripatetic, meaning you just keep moving. left Russia when I was 7, left Israel when I was 14. All these kind of pivotal points in people's life histories, I change cultures drastically.
Yeah.
Okay, change homes drastically.
Yeah.
And so I kind of became the stereotypical wandering Jew. I'm okay with not
Yeah.
having a home.
Yeah.
Right now, my wife and I have developed this kind of gypsy artist's lifestyle where
Yeah.
we run our dance business from pretty much anywhere. We're bi-coastal.
Yeah.
We are staying 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there.
Yeah.
6 months in New York, but then we're going to be going to
Yeah.
all kinds of countries and states in between that. So I both yearn, because that's something I don't have, yearn for something constant, but I also realize that's a chimera. It's an illusion. And again, going back to the Buddhist concept of letting go,
Yeah.
I have to kind of practice that on a regular basis because, I don't have a fixed abode. I mean, I do. We have an apartment in New York,
Yeah.
but it's a tiny 300 square foot apartment that we use just got to sleep in and work and leave as much as we can.
Yeah.
Right next to Central Parks, which is kind of our
Wow.
backyard. So I
Wow.
enjoy that.
So, I asked Michael Lapid, the filmmaker, about 40 years ago, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? And most people don't know, Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922 in France, but in the 80s it flourished to the point where Marty Scorsese says, I edit my films faster because of MTV. And so Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I do ask this question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
No. I think it's because information. Remember, the speed of thought is faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
So it just happens naturally because that's the way we're fast. If there's a tiger coming, we got to process that fast.
Yeah.
Fast. But with the image, you have a two-dimensional screen, and so the fastness is. Let me give an example. Okay.
Yeah.
I as a teenager, I would go to a 5 weeks summer camp every year for 5 years. Right. I'd go off to the mountains, play my chamber music. Really enjoyed it. Come home. There's about 2-3 weeks left before school starts. What does a teenager do? Watches TV. So I watched a lot of. After not having TV for 5 weeks, no TV in the camp at all. And remember, this is pre-screens and stuff, pre-iPods and whatever. I would start watching TV. And what I noticed right away is an interesting brain phenomenon is that, let's say there's a horse running across the screen. My head would turn away from the screen towards the direction that the horse is supposed to run. And now it only happened for the first 5-10 minutes of me watching TV. Then my brain adjusted. But that was a huge lesson to me.
Wow.
As a perceptive teenager, I was like, wait a second, that's an interesting phenomenon. Note that.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that I'm being fooled by the screen. That my brain's okay, well, we have this blinders. Okay, we'll put the blinders on. Not going this way, we're just going this way. Even though there's movement, but there is no movement.
Yeah.
No movement. No. So our eyes move, of course. But I forgot what I was even saying.
It reminded me of in one of the McLuhan books, he talks about they showed African tribes regular movies and observed that anthropologists, whatever, Edmund Carpenter, and these studies, and the protagonist would be in the center of the screen talking, and then a chicken would run through the back, and they would go, how the audience in Africa respond? They go, where'd that chicken go?
Where'd the chicken go? Yeah.
But
nobody else noticed.
Right. But it is the hidden question, really, Roman, is it literally possible for humans to multitask?
Oh, no. I mean, on the surface, yes. On the surface, for sure, we can multitask.
Yeah.
But if we want to get squeeze any kind of meaning or squeeze anything interesting out of things, we have to pay attention.
Yeah.
To that one thing.
Yeah.
Now that one thing can have a bunch of elements. So we are in a sense multitasking when we're just staring at a ping pong ball. Yeah. We're multitasking automatically.
Staring at a ping pong.
That was one of my dreams as a young, wannabe writer. One of my dreams is to write a novel just about a ping pong ball.
Oh, that is good.
Of course, unrealized because it sounds.
But
really hard.
it's also Evelyn Wood speed reading, like Craig Baldwin. I says, can we literally learn to take in information faster? And he goes, yeah, Evelyn Wood speed reading. But is that the same you would apply to
Again, there's a difference between
multitasking?
information and there's a difference. But information is a very
Yeah.
wide
Yeah,
term. There's a difference between information that's just like, who's the president, what day
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
what's happening in the movie,
Yeah.
and information that makes you take that next step of actually digesting the information, of thinking about it,
yeah,
maybe taking the next logical step, or maybe pulling
Yeah.
back and saying, wait a second, that's not quite right, or
Yeah.
something's we got to reframe.
yeah,
So that's the kind of information that I'm more interested in. That's why I love novels. Novels disguise their information
yeah,
into some sort of they
Yeah.
sneak it past you
yeah.
without directly focusing on it.
Roman, you brought up dream and you actually articulated dream. And I love when people will just tell me a tidbit of a dream because, American Indians, indigenous, have a good way of explaining, or they have a method that is how I explain the wake. And it is you go from tent to tent. And you go, did you dream last night? And I was, yeah. What'd you dream about? So the questioner becomes the co-creator of the dream.
I see.
Because you can't describe a dream.
No,
you
really.
can kinda, or do a dream journal. So McLuhan said that Finnegan's Wake was an example of dreaming awake, where everyone can create a scenario in the middle of the night that's amazing. But artists can, not to sound elitist, but artists do that while they're awake. So have dreams played a role in your creative process? You sort of gave that example, the ping pong ball. But, talk about that a little, just I'll set it off with Jean Cocteau, because this is what he's saying. It is a filmmaker's privilege to be able to allow a large number of people to dream the same dreaming together and to show us, moreover, the optical illusions of unreality with the rigor of realism.
Ooh.
So what a ping pong ball is.
Right.
And so you go, why this dream about a ping pong ball and I want to turn it into a novel? So talk about that process of what is dreaming to you in your creative process?
I tell you, Jerry, I had a period. I went to Scandinavia around 2000, right before COVID, right? And I've always had an attraction to the North, right? Scandinavia countries. So I really had a wonderful time. I also didn't smoke pot. Now, pot takes away your dreams. Pot is, I think Tao Lin, the author Tao Lin, mentioned something that I think stuck with me because it makes sense. He said, cannabis kind of like spreads your dreams out throughout the day. And so when you come to the night, there's no more left, so to speak. It's like it's a bit of a dreamy kind of existence. Right. But anyway, I went to Scandinavia. I did not smoke weed for 3-4 weeks, and my dreams came back.
Wow.
And I had a wonderful time. But when I came back, I continued my fast from cannabis, and I used these dreams to explore what's going on at night, because I would get dreams before, but occasionally, and mostly I forget them like most people. And I had, and this is a known thing, a rebound after maybe quitting, stopping smoking, is that your dreams just rush at you.
Yeah.
Really quite a wonderful dream. So I had this experience for 3 to 4 months where I was dreaming intensely every night, to the point where I was, lucid dreaming. I was lucid dreaming. I became a bird. I flew like a bird, which gave me incredible power. But what happened is, I discovered that I was very excited to go to sleep every night.
Wow.
Because I didn't stop existing. It was a 24-hour existence.
Right.
It wasn't just like, okay, night, Roman, and then you wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Maybe you remember a dream or two. I had intense dreams. I existed during the night. I processed my reality, during my daytime reality. I got deeper into my subconscious. I was the happiest I've ever been during those 3 months. I was a very pleasant person to be around. People changed around me because I was, I don't know, something got loosened. I was changed.
Yeah.
And I I guess I'll say it on camera. It sounds so wrong to say it. I felt saintly. I wasn't a
That's
saint,
great.
but I
though.
felt,
That's not,
I
yeah.
felt,
What's wrong with that? Feeling saintly.
I felt very whole.
Yeah.
There was no interruption to my existence.
Yeah.
And so I like doubled my life suddenly. You know, I
Wow.
doubled the goodness.
Yeah.
And so that was a very, I mean, such a wonderful period of my life. And then it stopped. And so, but it taught me a lesson that I think dreaming is whether you remember it, whether you're conscious of it or not, it happens every night.
Yeah.
It is an incredibly important aspect of our existence. It's
Yeah.
a forgotten aspect of our existence because we are not there most of the time. We're out to lunch, so to speak. But if we're able to connect with that nighttime existence, and it's paradise. It's like your life doesn't end.
Yeah.
There's no end to it. Not that you don't get a relief or a break, but I just think it was just an amazing something I would love to come back to.
Yeah.
But I don't like to try to do things. I like things to happen naturally.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is an important part of creative process.
No,
absolutely.
That was great. Is perception reality?
Is perception reality?
Yeah.
Partially.
Yeah.
Partially it is. But if you take it for all of reality, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's got to be part of reality. Well, I mean, reality is the totality of things. So perception is part of that.
Yeah. Lily Tomlin says reality is just a collective hunch.
Yeah. Totally.
That is really
totally.
Good.
And nowadays we have a bunch of hunches. It's not just even a collective hunch. There's little pockets of hunches coming out of everybody. That's why I think there's a lot of confusion going on right now.
Yeah.
The culture's changed. The culture is bifurcated. Well, not it's broken into a lot of parts.
Yeah. What was the motive of the cave artist?
The motive. The motive. Oh, pleasure. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Art is, you get fulfilled, man. You feel good when you do it. I mean, not always, but
yeah. Roman, what's more important, conviction or compromise?
Here's my Robert Anton Wilson influence. Conviction causes convicts.
Wow.
That's Robert Anton Wilson quote for you. So if you're convinced of something, you're a convict of that idea. So I've been trying all my life to keep doubt in the forefront without, being totally wishy-washy.
Yeah. You've accomplished a lot. How do these three elements contribute? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, the second and the third?
I think it's almost all luck. Ambition just gets in the way. Ambitious people suffer really badly at the end of their life, I think.
Yeah.
At least if they're really ambitious, like from an egotistical kind of perspective. But I think it's luck. And I'm not going to define luck in any metaphysical terms. I think chaos. It's chaos mostly.
Wow.
Yeah. So I want to accept the moment as it is. I don't know if luck brought me to it. Providence, ambition. I don't have very much ambition yet. I have a suspicion, and I've been accused of not having ambition because I haven't pursued any career.
Oh.
I am not a driven person, so to speak. But there is, I don't know. I think ambition is just gets in the way. I think it's.
Yeah, my question was originally, which I got from Christine McKenna, was, is ambition based more on fear or joy? And 80% of people would say fear.
Yeah, I would say fear.
And then William Friedkin, who just died, Exorcist director, said in Hollywood, skill and luck have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition.
Right.
Which was a great.
Interesting.
He's a very smart man with words.
But what ambition does is maybe direct your luck. You can direct your luck.
Well, that's Gary Player, the golfer. He says the more you practice, the luckier you get.
Right.
So there's there, and it's funny because then I changed the question from fear or joy, and then I said, rate these three. And some people go, well, no, it's none of those. It's perseverance or it's necessity. So, just because I say it's these three.
I think a lot of those words could be almost synonyms.
Yeah. Well, it's like this one. I never ask this anymore, but I'll ask you: is loyalty based on reason?
No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. Loyalty. Interesting you mentioned that because I was just thinking about that day. I love, via Robert Anton Wilson, I guess, on my own also. I love Orson Welles.
Yeah.
And I maybe about 6 months ago, I went through an intense period of Wells love again, because I go through these periods where I have to rewatch everything, think about it
Wow.
again, read about him. I get obsessive that way about people and just artists. And Chimes at Midnight, his Shakespearean movie, which is so brilliant, and it's it's all about loyalty and betrayal, and the way he does it is just so I don't know, fulfilling to watch. Horribly sad. Prince Hal rejects Falstaff. And just reading about Wells's life in general, that was one of his main concerns is betrayal and loyalty. That was kind of his overriding sort of modus operandi. That's how he judged people, whether they were loyal or betrayed him. And for him, that was more important than being an artist, is to be a loyal person to somebody.
Yeah. You mean the character he's playing, or him in life as well?
Him in life as well. He had some betrayals in his life that stung like the Dickens, that he never got over, that affected his later creativity. Maybe for the better, I would say.
Well, that's like, the speech he gave at AFI. You ever watch
that?
Yes,
yeah. We're asking for
they're all those people have ripped him off, and he doesn't go, "You fuckers ripped me off."
He gave that
He's
incredible
like,
speech.
"We're Mavericks."
Yes.
It's so like, it's like, boy, dude, you really knew how to swallow the pride. But we should do a Wells salon, because I have a few filmmakers. Oh, but you want to do this live? That's right.
No,
but at some point,
I could do Zoom. Don't get me wrong.
No, someday we'll do it, because we did one on Godard, and we've
especially
done
if I can't come here. Of course.
But I did ask. I just want to check. Yeah, we've gone 90. Well, we've done 100 minutes almost, and I asked for 90. So. Can you go another 10 or 15?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it.
And so then we should do a part 2 somewhere down the line, 2 or 3 months down, because we only got through, 20 questions.
How many do you
I
have?
usually do. Well, I do 100. I usually do 40.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry,
I mean, with you, we could go so many
directions,
because it would be great to dive into Wells right now.
Yeah.
But let's do this. We'll do a couple more. T.S. Eliot said, "Poetry is outing your inner dialogue." What language is your inner dialogue in?
Well, after everything I've told you about my languages, there's a little bit of a Tower of Babel going on inside of me. I have a thick base layer of Russian. A smidgen of Hebrew, because I just got comfortable with Hebrew, and then I left, and then I never really had any Israeli friends to play with when I was in Boston, so I lost the language. But there's an Israeli layer of linguistic, that's definitely there. And then there's my love of English prose, which is very, very strong. And so I have these layers, and even on this podcast, I could think of a Russian word, but I couldn't think of the English word.
Exactly.
When the intuition kind of called it right away, you know.
But Roman, it is a little metaphorical. What form is your inner consciousness in? Meaning,
not what language, what form?
Well, that's when I say what language is your inner consciousness, or no, what language is your inner dialogue in? I appreciate when people say English. That's literally answering,
right?
But a little more metaphorically.
Yeah. It comes in chunks. Then I would say, I because of my love of systems thinking and more generalized thinking. I have these, and I tend to be relatively fast in my thinking. Like we were just talking about, that was my answer. Speed of thought is faster than the speed of light. And so what I've discovered is that I have this, and I did discover this actually as I was living my life, is that I have these pre-made chunks of thought that are kind of ready to go all together
Yeah.
already in one chunk, and
Yeah.
that's my inner dialogue.
Pre-made
Pre-made chunks of thoughts. There you
Wow.
go. A horrible way of expressing it.
No, it's not.
But they're a little bit like train cars as opposed
Yeah.
to individual things.
Yeah.
So I can link them up, and then I have a nice little ride. And I tend to do this rather fast. My strength, just just reporting from people around me, my loved ones and friends, say is that I think fast. I think fast, and I think categorically. And so that, let's say people are talking and I'm part of the conversation, I can say a sentence which will summarize everything that we're talking about and make sense metaphorically. And
Yeah.
people are like, yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
I have that a lot happen to me
Yeah.
when I can just summarize what people are thinking
Yeah.
very quickly. And so I think in chunks.
Yeah. That's the big picture. That's like comprehensive awareness is acquired through pattern recognition. So you see the patterns. Like I can't read. I can't. I was raised in front of a TV and I have Lex Dixie or a dyslexia or I have all that. But I read backwards. So I get a book and I start read the back and the
Wow.
front a little, and then I just skim for quotes.
Well, no wonder you love The Wake. The Wake is made for that.
All I do is
I never read The Wake from beginning to end.
Right.
I've never done that. I've always been
right. And it is amazing. You run a reading club and you can't read. And it goes, yeah, it makes sense. But it's fun what you just said there. That was really good. And so, two of my film heroes have this mantras. George Maniapelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says, there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and culture is dominant?
Well, it's self-expression by definition. That's just, you can't avoid that. I am not against, but I don't like the current age of self-expression. Everybody gets to express their thoughts, and everybody's got an opinion. I'm not a big fan of that kind of thinking, but just by definition, it's self-expression. You're expressing whatever. A lot of times, you're not expressing anything original.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm including myself in that. We're just rehashing the memes that go around in our culture. That's why I really, really like to think. Like George Carlin had this, I like to do the strange thing called thinking.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not putting too much weight on logical thinking or any kind of, straight go ahead rationality. I think thinking is way deeper than just that. Thinking is hunches, intuition.
Yeah.
It's the ability to follow intuition, the ability to recognize a hunch, to express it maybe in words, something that's maybe not initially not linguistic based.
Yeah.
And so I think it's,
it's interesting, like James Brown's drummer, I says, where, he's the architect for funk drumming. He says, where'd you get your sound? He says, I lived in Ohio and there was a train track on one side of my house and there was a factory on the other. So it was and Ginger Baker, where'd you get your drum sound? He says, well, I was in London when they were bombing. Boom, 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 boom. So, it's sort of like being this vehicle, like Joyce. He says, all I did was sit in Paris in the 1920s and listen. But he listened to shortwave radio and wrote it all down. And so he was just a vehicle. And they said, well, how'd you write Finland's Ring? He said, I didn't write it. Those people sitting at the coffee house, like Psychogeography or Flaneurs wrote it. But this idea can art making be egoless?
Well, like I said, it can't by definition.
Yeah.
By definition, it can't.
Yeah.
I mean, unless an AI composes a novel, but even then, that's not possible. Whatever. But by definition, your ego is there. I don't think there's. But William Burroughs said that. If you're going to be a good Buddhist, forget about being a novelist.
Did he say that? Wow.
Have you seen an amazing Buddhist novelist?
Yeah.
Where is that? Where are they? They're not existent, or they're not that good novelists, or they're not great Buddhists. Not that you can be a great Buddhist, but I think, look, Lego my ego, right? It's the ego is there.
Yeah.
I think when you do your best work as a creative artist, it's kind of on the side. It's not interfering. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of it not. It's a filter. It's always there, but you
Yeah.
want the filter to be nice and clean. If it gets all cloggy and it's all your ego concerns,
Yeah.
you'll come out in the art. The art will be kind of dirty.
Yeah. Was Freud right?
About what?
That was a trick question. Yeah. No, it's a funny follow-up because ego, when I say can art be egoless, it's been an amazing journey because everybody says, no, you got to have ego in it. But then a woman about 2 years ago said, great art is egoless. And then a woman about it a month ago said, it has to be egoless. So again, it's when you say by definition and then you suss it out, that one person I says, can art making me egoless? They go, you mean ego in a good way or a bad way? Because we take the word ego and there's this, egotistical.
No.
But there's ways to interpret the meaning of the word.
Read Raymond Smullyan's that book, that Thou is Silent. He's
Yeah.
got a book about ego, chapters about egoism.
Yeah.
Now Raymond, if you had known him, he was very quote unquote full of himself. He was an egoist, but in the best sense, meaning he enjoyed interacting with people, and he was just all about him.
Was too, you think?
Not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I think he certainly transcended his ego to a certain degree. Yeah, but he was an egomaniac.
Wow.
I think any artist is an egomaniac.
And you had him as a professor, or you just befriended
Raymond?
him?
Oh, Raymond Smullyan? No, I was a fan of his books. I couldn't really follow a lot of his logic.
And then you got
puzzles.
to meet him.
I got the balls to call him up, thinking that he was dead, because this was,
And you hung out with him?
I was a big fan of his in the 80s, right? In the late 80s, I started reading him as a teenager. And then in the 90s, I was, raising my family. So 2008 or so, I'm like, Raymond is, I'm reading another book of his or something, or an old book.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine goes, why don't you call him up? Maybe he's, you're such a big fan. And I'm like, he's probably dead. I mean, my favorite book of his was 1977. He was already old then. But he wasn't. He was in his 90s, quite happily alive. He was completely gracious, invited me to his home in Elko Park in upstate New York.
Wow.
I visited him with my family. He wrote me a very nice email after the first visit saying that your family visit felt like it was my family visiting. Wow. We became just really good friends.
Yeah,
through
phone conversations?
Phone call conversations. I came up to visit him maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times before he died.
Wow.
We'd stay overnight there.
Did you tape any?
No.
Wow.
No, I just enjoy being around him. There's he's got a lot of material online. You'll if you go Google him,
definitely check him
out. But again, being in his presence, he's just such a gentle, funny, super sharp guy, and even in his 90s.
Yeah.
Math. He was on you should Google his Johnny Carson appearance. He was on the Carson show.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, man. He was 1982, I think he was on Carson show.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube.
I'll definitely check it. So why don't we close up this as part 1 with this question. How has studying the wake shaped your behavior?
Oh, it's continuing. It's never stopping. It's the idea of it never stopping came from the wake. I think a lot of my life is almost like wake-like.
Yeah.
It's undefined, but it's got a lot of various meanings. It's really shaped me. It's also kind of because of my addiction to English prose. It showed me pretty much the ultimate English prose. I don't know what I mean. I know it's not just English, but again, because of my knowledge of Russian, that helps a lot because I can see the Russian in the wake. Nochi daily. Nochi means nights. Nights daily.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, what?
Wow.
Or sukin sin. Something sukin sin, something son of a bitch in Russian. That's what it means.
Wow.
But the wake is really, like I said, it hit me when I was 17, just at the age of when the age of reason was really blossoming in me, and it never left me. I always come back to the wake. I may not read it for 2-3 weeks, but I always come back to it.
Yeah.
It sometimes loses its color and meaning and fun to me, and then I know something's wrong with me.
Wow, it's your temperature.
So it's like exactly,
temperature.
and then, but usually I'm reading it and bouncing right along. I'm enjoying it. It's a never-ending process, as you know. You keep reading. Like I told you earlier, I understand maybe 10% of it,
Yeah.
So there's always room to grow, but the understanding is not the goal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not the goal of reading the
No,
wake.
that it's Beckett. It's not a description of a dream.
It
is
is
a
the
dream.
dream.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm
And good
living the
luck.
dream.
And in, you know, in thinking too, it's like you're conscious, you're thinking, you're seeing syllables, like you're hearing these sounds. So you can't avoid thinking. But when you cross over into the total surrender of the feeling, and that's you know, I have so many quotes on thinking that I love that you brought up. And the two that remind me right away were George Clinton, Parliament of Funkadelic, says, "Think it ain't illegal
It ain't
yet."
illegal yet. That's nice.
And then,
Bumper sticker.
The Marx Brothers were in a jam, and one says, "We got to think," and the other one said, "We already tried that."
Raymond Smullyan, go to his house. Well, he's dead
Yeah.
now, but my first appearance, you know, I walk into his living room. He's got two grand piano. Well, actually, one grand piano. He moved one upstairs because he's a pianist. And on the shelf next to it, a complete Marx Brothers video collection.
Nice. Yeah. It's amazing. Then closing, Roman, what's one question that remains unresolved for you?
Why?
Why? Wow. You know, that's my 5W questions. Who, what, when, where, and why.
I know all those except for why.
What's the most important? Most people say why. You know.
Why?
Yeah.
But I'm also in the same breath will say that, people say there's a reason for everything. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I like chaos. I like unreason. I'm perfectly comfortable with not knowing the purpose.
Not knowing
in
is so
general.
important.
Not knowing is the source of knowing.
In
Hello?
unlearning,
Well, because we do learn a lot of bad stuff, a lot of bad habits.
Because you're a thinker, but you can realize the opposite.
I think everybody's a thinker, Jerry.
Everybody is. But I mean, like you said,
you're a natural philosopher.
Exactly. But you have a pattern recognition. It's probably knowing the 3 languages
that helps. The cultural diversity.
But there's something probably in your DNA. It seems to me your parents were like really smart and they raised you well.
Yeah, they did. They really did. Yeah.
All right, Roman, what a pleasure.
It was fun, Jerry.
Look at we go like this. Bye
guys.
Even though here's my closing line. Even though I'm gonna hit the end broadcast button, I hope this will never end, Roman, and we can keep talking forever and ever. Okay, I hit that. Now I hit that.